Perfect. All right. Welcome, everybody. My name's Andrew. I'm the Fort Bend County Law Librarian. And today we're going to actually have our first attorney lecture series of 2021. It's pretty exciting. And this year we're going to focus on attorneys. Last year we focused on pro se litigants and we gave a lot of programs that were focused toward them. And so this year we're going to focus a little bit on attorneys and what they need to know, especially in their own law practice. So we're not going to really talk about practicing law. I sure hope you know how to do that because we're not going to teach you how to do that. But we're going to talk today about marketing and branding. And our speaker here today is Lauren Flathouse, who's a local attorney. And in her previous profession, she dealt with marketing and branding. So without further ado, Lauren.
Thanks. Yes, so a little bit about me is that law is my second career. So prior to law, I graduated from Texas A&M. So obviously loud and proud Aggie, if we ever get together. But I did oil and gas sales. I was a school teacher for a couple years, and then I did pharmaceutical sales for about 6 years, and then was the director of marketing for a medical practice management company. So I've done sales and marketing and branding in several different arenas, which was entirely helpful in starting my law practice. We moved up to Houston about 8 years ago when I went to law school at South Texas. Knew that I would start my own law firm. Had plenty of people tell me that I had lost my mind. And I wasn't quite sure if they were correct. I got a little bit nervous, but I was trusting my business acumen up to that point, the sales and marketing that I had done previously, and then just the relationships that I had built up to that point in the community. So went ahead, dove in first, and had a very successful first year. So that was really great. I've been licensed since 2018, I think. It's like we forget when we graduated, like we forget how old we are. But in starting my law practice, I realized that law school really teaches you how to practice law, but nothing else that goes with it. So you've got a lot of the legal knowledge, the basis, but you have no idea unless you go into a firm how to actually make it all work together, and especially trying to build a client portfolio. You kind of end up taking a little bit of everything. Maybe you shouldn't do that, but that was kind of the concept that I went in with, and then was able to slowly kind of wind that down into certain practice areas that I truly enjoyed. But again, the sales and marketing background I think really helped me, because I was able to have conversations, speak something other than legalese to the people calling, which I think, if we go from, maybe high school to college to law school, that legalese just comes out naturally. Having had careers prior to law, I'm not great at legalese, but I'm great at having a conversation with people. So kind of going through that, I realized that the things that I found that came naturally don't come naturally to a lot of different people, because sales and marketing is just something that I'd always done. So it just wasn't something that I truly had to work at doing. So I'm just going to kind of go through like what exactly is marketing. I think marketing is it's what you do to advertise, how you are trying to promote your business. It includes the advertising, things like that. So I think most law firms, most attorneys are comfortable in kind of outsourcing that part, but nobody really knows kind of what that actually entails, right? And if you have any questions as we're going through this, please stop. Obviously, the virtual setting is amazing because we're able to still do this, but I love interaction. So if you have questions, I'm happy to answer those. But advertising marketing, we think search engine SEO. Everybody says SEO, and you're like, I have no idea what SEO is. Search engine optimization, which is great if you are looking at algorithms. I don't know. I still don't know how to look at algorithms, but I do know how to measure whether or not I'm gaining traction based on the marketing and the branding and the content that I'm putting out. So part of the marketing, I think everybody kind of understands that, right? I mean, at least in a general concept. But the branding is really where everything kind of comes together. Marketing is great if you have an established business. Marketing can be incredibly difficult if you are just starting out as a solo or merging with another attorney and you're starting another, small firm business, or really any business for that matter. But branding is you, like you are the brand, right? You don't have a product. You're not selling a t-shirt, not selling coffee mugs. They're cool. They're great, but you are the brand. You are the attorney who's going to be working with the client. You are the attorney who's going to be making sure that their case follows some sort of transition to the end, because that's who you're working for. So you're the brand. People want to see you. People want to know about you. People want to know what you're doing, how you did it. And kind of stepping back a second, one of the things that I didn't realize people were watching because I was a second career attorney. I've got 3 kids. When I went to law school, my youngest was like 1.5. So like when I say my kids were little, I mean, they were, relatively self-sufficient, but, and also still entirely reliant on me as the parent. And so I, kind of used Facebook and I used social media platforms and just kind of talking about the journey and the process. And I didn't realize how vested people were in my story and what was happening, which just kind of feels weird too, right? 'Cause we post on Facebook for our friends and family to kind of stay up to date, but we don't really feel like people are vested in the story and what's happening. But the story is just where everything flows from. Everything comes together at that point. You like doing business with people you know, right? The people that you are referring them because you trust them, you know they're going to do a good job, you know they've got good morals, good ethics, whatever the reason is, you're referring them because you're vested in that scenario. So you are your brand. So as uncomfortable as it actually is to put your picture out there or a selfie or a video or what have you, it's so relevant in building the story, building the journey, building your firm, building your business, getting the clients, because referrals are such a huge source of business. It doesn't mean you're going to work for the neighbor, but the neighbor is going to mention your name to their friend, and then so on. It's just going to carry on. So branding and marketing definitely tie hand in hand together. There were a few quotes that I would just want to mention because it kind of wraps in that story. So Jeff Bezos, I'm going to say all these names wrong, but he's the founder of Amazon, and he says your brand is what other people say about you when you leave the room. Kind of scary, right? Like, people say, oh, I heard about you, and you're like, oh gosh, I hope it was good. Or at least that's what I think. Um, who's another one? Walter Landor says products are made in a factory, but brands are created in your mind. Seth Godin, again, probably saying all these names wrong, so I apologize now. Every interaction in any form is branding. And then David Breyer says branding is the art of differentiation. So there's a lot of attorneys, right? Lots of attorneys, lots of family law attorneys, lots of criminal defense attorneys, probate attorneys, personal injury attorneys. Like, I don't think there's a shortage of attorneys. So what you really have to focus on doing is building your brand, building your story, but then making sure that the content that you're actually putting out is first reaching the clients that you're trying to reach, and then second is synonymous with your brand. So I think something that is hard to kind of wrap your head around is when you're building the business, when you're starting out, like you've got your business plan and you've got your budget and you've monotonized your overhead, and fax is going to cost this, and it's an e-fax now, and I need to spend this much on my website and this much on all the different things, but we don't create typically like a mission statement for ourselves. And it's so important because everything that you are doing in the business needs to build off of that mission statement. And for some people, it's, become this uh, you know, world renowned attorney who's going to be on Dateline, right? Um, but for some people, they just want to help as many people as possible. So it's finding what your end goal is, both short term and long term, but definitely that mission statement, the thing that is your why. Providing for your family, working enough so that your spouse gets to stay at home with the kids. Whatever your reasoning is going to drive the messaging and the content that you're putting out. So there's three main things that I think about when it comes to marketing. So it's brand strategy, brand content, and then like the actual marketing component. But like, what are those? So brand strategy, that's like your blueprint for business branding. So you're building a house and you've got the set of are they called blueprints? I obviously don't build houses, but you've got like the architectural design, you know exactly what wall is going where and the plumbing that's going to go here and the electrical that's going to go there. You have to do the same thing for any business that you're building, especially your law firm. There are a lot of things that you have to take into consideration when you're building that brand. We're not board certified in everything, but you can still be an expert in that field without being board certified in it. You're competent in the area that you are practicing in. And your clients want to know that you're competent in the area that you're practicing in. So it's kind of, doing some research, brand discovery. What are some other people doing? What are other attorney practices that you want to emulate? I don't mean copy, because you have to be relatable to you. People are going to see if you're not being true to what your personality is. They're gonna, see something online, meet you in person. They're like, what just happened? You don't want to do that, because again, that comes back to your reputation and your brand. But then also when you're building that brand strategy, it's what does your perfect client look like? Obviously when you're first starting out, your perfect client is anybody who comes in the door that actually pays you. But long term, what does the perfect client look like? Are you doing estate planning and you're going over the after the high asset estates? Are you doing contested litigation? Do you want the high profile personal injury cases? You have to find whatever that ideal client looks like, and then that goes back to what's your brand strategy, what kind of messaging are you putting out, and then you have to have a voice behind what you're doing. Again, people want to see you. Sharing articles is fantastic. Funny memes, those are great. But who are you? Why are you doing this? Who are you talking to? You've got to put yourself definitely in your client's shoes and talk to them like you already are their attorney, like you want to be their attorney, without establishing the attorney-client relationship. Um, we all know the bounds. Content. What do you want people to know about you? What do you want people to see about you? Having that personal connection is important, but it doesn't mean you're publicizing everything that happens in your private life. I'm married with 3 kids. Awesome. That's enough of a relatable story for people to be like, okay, she gets it. Like, she's a mom and she's a wife and she's a sister, and all the things that you're trying to connect with your clients about. It doesn't mean everybody needs to know your dog's name. But it's establishing enough of the rapport to where people want to genuinely work with you. They feel like you are vested in their case, that you are vested in what happens to them. It creates that genuine relationship that even if it's not something that they use you for, they refer you to other people that need an attorney. Consistency is really key, both in the content and then the branding. So your website is obviously super important. You've got to have a platform that people are coming back to. The more people you can drive to your website, Google review goes up. There you go. That's where the SEO comes into play, but you don't have to pay for the SEO right now. The pay per click, it gets really expensive, and as a newer attorney, you don't necessarily see that return on investment right away, or at least I didn't, because I did those things thinking that was what you were supposed to do when you first started. And then, about 4 months in, I was like, I don't really think this is going to be helpful. And then I stopped and I saw no difference in the return I was getting because the content and the brand strategy that I was putting into place far outweighed the SEO that I was paying for. I mean, I think I got a lot of robocallers, but none of those were paying clients. And then the last one, is goes back into the marketing, the SEO. We're trying to drive Google reviews. Social media marketing is incredibly helpful if you know how to use it correctly. Everybody has heard of Facebook advertising. It is fantastic if you know how to use it. You can set like a wide scope in your area, but you may get a whole lot of clients that if I practice estate planning, I don't want immigration clients calling because I don't know how to practice immigration. There are experts in those fields. In fact, I have several friends that practice in that area, so I do refer them, but those calls aren't offering value to my practice. So they help in the referral network, which we'll kind of talk about as well. But you are trying to attract the clients that you want to bring in the door. Referring is great, but that's not going to help your bottom line. So one of the other things that I think people get really nervous about is just putting their face out on media, right? It's not comfortable. I think we're our own worst critic in everything that we do. So, if we put a picture up, we're like, oh man, that's a terrible picture. Or we just beat ourselves up about things that people aren't necessarily looking at. People just want to see you. So you have to get comfortable with being a little bit uncomfortable. And it doesn't mean you have to jump into like Facebook Lives or YouTube videos or anything like that, but they do truly serve a purpose. Like you can post a picture and those are great, but videos get a whole lot of traction. Um, you know, just scrolling, I use Facebook obviously a lot. And so one of the things that I really have to focus on is making sure that I'm doing enough of different things. So think low content and high content. So low content is things like Facebook and Instagram. You post something, people are scrolling through the news feed. High content are the videos, the blogs that you can add to your website, that you can put a link on Facebook or Instagram, whatever practice area makes sense for you to be using. But that's where you get the low content that people can go and see you, so you stay relevant. But then you've got that high content like the blogs that can go on your website, the videos that you can upload to YouTube, and that's where you can really showcase your legal knowledge, your expertise in your area, your competency in your practice area, your um, communication and just relation to your community, I guess. Things that, I don't want to be marketing to someone in West Virginia. I want to be marketing to people in my community because that's where I'm going to get the clients. So things like that are super important. Under promoting is just as harmful as over promoting. What I mean by over promoting is so think about how car salesmen used to be. So you come in and, they're constantly hard bargain, hard bargain. It's not fun anymore, car shopping, because now they're like, oh, this is the price. Well, that's boring. But sales and marketing, I was one of the weird people who really loved car shopping. They have sucked all the fun out of it. But think about it in that regard. So soft selling versus hard selling. You don't want every post that you're making to be like, I am the only attorney you should be using. Call me. Anyway, like think of like all like the abrasive, high sales stuff that you can do. You can sell without being salesy. Like I've never once approached my law practice and have thought, okay, I'm going to sell this client. No, I'm going to communicate effectively with this client. I am going to give them, assuming we've established an attorney-client relationship, I'm going to give them a broad legal advice during the consultation, a plan of action if they choose to hire me, and I'm going to build that rapport and that connection with the client, and then hopefully they do choose me. I have never once ended a consultation and said, okay, would you like to use me as your attorney? Just weird. If you are offering value, if you are being genuine in your conversation, they're just going to think, okay, this is fantastic. This is the exact attorney that I need. Where do I sign the contract? Because they want adequate legal representation, and you are the person that can offer that to them. So those are the kind of high selling things that you should be doing, whereas the low selling is just telling your story, staying relevant. You can't post on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube like once a month and be like, yeah, I'm totally advertising. No, you will get lost in the feed. You have to, start with 3 times a week. 4 times a week is fantastic. Get to once a day. I'm not saying you need to be spending all of your time flowing through all of the different social media platforms, but once a day is a good rule of thumb. Everybody will tell you something different. You have to figure out what works in your practice, because what works for somebody isn't going to work for the next person. It's all going to be dependent on what your circumstances are. I think one of the things that we worry about is just such a saturated market. I think we've all heard that. It is a saturated market. Everything's a saturated market. There's a coffee shop on every corner. You've got the mom and pop, and you've got the Starbucks and Kona coffee. Like the list goes on and on. You have to differentiate yourself enough to where someone thinks of, so if you're a personal injury attorney, someone thinks of a personal injury attorney, something happens on the news, they're talking to a neighbor, they need somebody, you want to be the first thing that pops into their mind. And you do that by networking, by building your connections, by being genuinely concerned in what happens, even if you're not the person to maybe receive the benefit of that. I think of other attorneys and not your competition. They're just not your competition. They're your colleagues. They can be your mentors. They're your friends and your neighbors. And if we start thinking of everybody in competition with ourselves, then I think you miss out on some opportunities to make really genuine connections. I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea legally, or even in my consulting business, which I do for marketing. But you've got to make sure that you aren't ruffling any feathers, intentionally at least. Building those connections, I refer business out all the time, and in no way do I assume that they're going to refer people back to me. They might, but if they don't, that's okay, because I'm still building that genuine connection, both with whoever I sent to them, because they're going to get adequate legal representation, and then you have become a good guy to the other attorney. Neither of those will ever be bad things. Becoming an expert in your field, again, doesn't mean you have to be board certified. Obviously, if you're board certified, you can advertise that. If you are not board certified, you can still be competent in what you're doing. You can still be really, really good in the area that you're practicing in. So let people know that, have conversations, with your colleagues and your neighbors. Remind them consistently, subtly, of what you do and what you practice in. Your business page is going to be for business branding, business advertising, but your personal page, you are supposed to promote yourself. We're so quick to promote other people, like, hey, so okay, I'm a girl, but okay, I got this cute top from this local shop, everybody should go there. Like, I have no problem doing that, and most people I don't think would, but when it comes to promoting ourselves, we feel weird and awkward about it. Don't feel weird and awkward. Be willing to be confident enough in yourself, even if it does feel awkward. People want to know. People want to be reminded. There are, people that do things that I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot that they owned this shop. I want to go support them, so I go do that. Or, um, you know, this other attorney, oh my gosh, I forgot that they practice in that area. I'm going to make sure that the next time I get a call, they're one of the attorneys that I recommend. I mean, we just forget. People are busy. Um, families, work, kid stuff, like COVID, I think everybody was kind of thrown for a loop last year. But those subtle reminders aren't a bad thing. People fact check. So like if you recommend Sally Smith, I don't know who Sally Smith is, but I'm gonna go Google her. I'm going to go see if she's on Facebook. And I'm going to kind of research them to make sure that that's the kind of person I want to be working with, right? So, on your personal page, you need to have your firm on your about, and that needs to be on a public setting. Um, that's like super easy. It's not salesy. It's not anything other than good marketing practice. Um, that's really one of the first things I do when I'm working with a client from a consulting standpoint is I go to their personal page. It's blocked because we're not friends. But I'm like, okay, where do they work? And then under the about section where they work, there's nothing there. Don't do that. Put the about, go to your workplace, attach your firm link, make sure it's public. It's just such a simple thing that we just really don't think about, but it's such an easy way to remind people of what we do, what we practice, what our firm name is, and it's just a good reminder. Um, ask so going back to being an expert. We want to offer value in most of the things that we do. So when you are doing that, ask your friends, family, neighbors, what questions do they have about what you practice? I mean, we get so in a routine and we can't think outside that box, right? All we know is what we do on a day-to-day basis, what our schedule looks like, what meetings we have coming up, what we need to do on the client cases. So those questions, it's not relevant to us. But make sure that you're answering the questions that people have by asking your friends and your family and your neighbors, what questions do you have about my practice or what I do? And then go online, make a post, make a video, and share those things. So easy. You didn't have to get creative. You didn't have to think too hard about it. It's just such common sense stuff that's not common sense. But it makes, it's easy if you think about it in that regard. Um, let's see what else. Um, Photos. Um, when I'm working with a consulting client for the branding and marketing, I typically recommend, if they don't have them already, professional photos. Everybody likes looking at pretty pictures. That's what sells magazines and the movies and TV. Those are amazing. They're great traction posts, having good content related to those photos. But you also want to throw in some awkward selfie in the office, or you want to show yourself quick selfie outside the courthouse. If you can have somebody else take the picture, it's great. But again, it's that subtle reminder of, hey, leaving the courthouse, successful day for my client. Obviously we can't discuss any specifics of any cases, but it's just that, refreshing take of, oh man, they're still out working hard. Oh yeah, I forgot that they did that. It's a good traction post, keeping people drawn to your social media, keeping people going to your website. Um, it's a good combination to do both. None of them are comfortable. It's a little easier to post the pretty pictures, of course, but don't be afraid to post, or just, you sitting in the office, a beautiful sunset or the sunrise or whenever you happen to be there. Um, it doesn't have to be serious all the time. It can be silly, whatever your personality is, that's the storyline. Um, I'm not all that funny or quirky. So actually, I am quirky, but I'm not all that funny unless I'm laughing at myself, which I tend to do. But so everything I post is in relation to that. Like I'm very much vested in what happens to my clients. I am very vested in what happens in my community. So those are the things that you'll see me posting about. There are some of my other clients who are like amazingly um, eccentric. And so those are the things we focus on for them because for them, that is exactly who they are. And it would be, it wouldn't be right to try to make them into something that they weren't. Don't mold yourself to fit something that you think you should be. Be authentic to your message, to your brand, because again, it all comes back to you. And at the end of the day, when you're selling your services as an attorney, you're selling you because you are the face of your brand. You are the one working hard for your client. You're the one getting the plan and action for them. Um, and those are the things that people want to be able to see. I think that covers about everything. Um, I mean, obviously, if you have additional questions, we can go through those now. If you ever want help, you can. I have my law firm, but then I do the branding, marketing, consulting. That's Flat Communications on Facebook. So you're welcome to go take a look there as well. But happy to answer any questions that y'all have.
I have a question, Lauren.
Yes, sir.
Uh, with the new rule coming out that you can do trade names, that's going to pass here in Texas. So how do you, what do you suggest people do in terms of personal branding versus, I do consumer law. So
Mm-hmm.
do I want to be the Texas Consumer Justice Center, or do I want to stick with Sanchez Law Firm? And what do you suggest about whether people jump over to trade names?
I think it's like with anything. So you want to be found, right? So like if somebody is wanting an attorney that does consumer law, you want to do something that makes sense to where people find you. So obviously people use their names a lot because then they're easily found if you do a Google search. So if you're going to do a trade name, I would suggest tying it directly in consistently with your current name. So if it's is what did you say, Sanchez Law Firm? Yeah. So the consumer lawyer, the Sanchez Law Firm. Obviously,
Well,
I think there.
my law firm name right now is Sanchez Law Firm, and my URL is sanchezlawfirm.com. So
Yeah.
it's all easy. Everyone can remember it. What I'm what I'm trying to figure out is in the future, now that we're going to have trade names, is do we go ahead and start building in these generic names into our practice names or URLs, or like how should all that work?
I wouldn't start changing something unless it's just not working for you. The same thing when you're going through like a marketing or branding strategy, don't fix it if it's not broken. So if what you're currently doing is working on your behalf, don't like throw a wrench in it. But if you are realizing that things are getting stagnant, you need to kind of do a refresh, then I suggest like a big one right now is hashtags because they're relatable on every single platform, Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. You can put them on your website, and all of those work together to kind of drive the algorithms. But the last thing you want to do is start like competing with what you currently have working, and then people get very confused.
Okay, that was my main.
Can you Lauren, can you do, I don't know about, I hadn't read about that rule, but, can you have alternative ones, have your traditional deal, joneslawfirm.com, but then, maybe do an alternative website or a second website or whatever you want to do it, branding in two ways, joneslawfirmpatents.com or whatever.
Yeah, so I think you can. And I mean, there are ways to sync up websites to where you can have different like URL links and they all go to the same page.
Mm.
So that would be a good idea to try to monotonize on the ability to be able to do that now, because that was something that we had not been able to do for a long time or ever. And so we kind of had to think outside the box on some other things that we could do. But I think if you have it going, linking back to your original site, I think that's the way to do it rather than having two competing
Mm-hmm.
interests.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you have different distinct practice areas where you're not just a personal injury attorney or just a criminal defense attorney, do you still recommend having one site that then covers all your firm, or do you recommend having separate practice area sites so that someone looking at criminal defense will go to your criminal defense site and someone looking up your personal injury will go to your personal injury site?
So that's a good question. And I actually had that conversation with a client yesterday. So they had like a one-page website. So like if you clicked on the about, you just scrolled down and went a little bit further. And if you clicked practice areas, it scrolled down a little bit further. That's not good Google algorithm, for lack of a better terminology. You want different pages. So the more pages you have, or I guess not the more pages you have, but you want them to be able to click on the about and it brings you to another page within your website. And you want them to be able to click on practice areas and go to a different, so you can have like a criminal defense page on your website, and you can have an estate planning link on your website that brings you to a separate page, but all within the same website. Is that what you were
That's how-
asking?
Well, do you suggest one website that has, pages that address your practice areas? Or
Yes.
do you suggest separate websites for separate practice areas?
I don't. I mean, other people may say something different, and they may have a valid reason why they would suggest different. And everything I know up to this point, you need to have one consistent website, where that gives them all the options of things you want them to know about you. That's a good question. Anybody else?
Hey, Lauren.
Hey.
I had a question about Google. So I've quickly learned it's an endless pit that you can throw as much money as you want at it to get you higher up. I'm looking for, so I've only been practicing since I graduated in 2018 as well. I was with the DA's office and just branched off on my own at the beginning of the year. So I'm going on my second month, so really early. But I'm trying to find ways to boost Google presence, I guess a little more naturally without having to boost myself to the top through payments.
Yeah. So the easiest, so what you want is like an organic growth. So you want to see what kind of growth you can get initially without having to dump hundreds or thousands of dollars a month on Google ads or SEO, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So anybody that you have, like former clients, send them an email. Hey, I've opened up my practice. And obviously that may be a little more difficult because you were working in the DA's office, but anybody that you've worked with, send them an email. Hey, I've opened up my new practice. I would really appreciate a Google review. Google reviews get a whole lot of traction in boosting your page. It's not going to solve all the problems, but it's going to start creating relevance for you. Another thing that I did early on is when I created my website, I posted that website link on my personal page, and I said, hey, everybody go check it out. Let me know what you like, what you dislike. And so I did that because I just thought that was a good idea. It was going to get different perspective. I looked at it to death. Everything at that point, I was like, well, I don't know anymore. But what I didn't realize that did is that it's driving a large volume of people to click on my website. And the more people that click on your website, the better your rating and appearance becomes on Google. So things that you don't even necessarily intend to happen end up working for you. So I would say do those two things initially. Start creating good content on your Facebook page, and then when you're ready, do the Facebook ads. And the part that you want to promote is driving people to your website. Not messages, not call you, which both are important, but drive them to your website.
And are there any issues that you see with other attorney recommendations. I know AVO has that specifically for lawyer endorsements, but for Google reviews, I know Google can be a little iffy with how they, I guess, accept reviews on your Google page. Is that anything you can tell me about?
Especially when I first started, I spent a lot of times reading on the professional ethics, and I'm a major rule follower, so I try hard to follow all the rules and boundaries. What I always recommend doing is just kind of full disclosure, like, and I've done this on other attorney friend pages and vice versa. Is I'm another attorney in the field. I've recommended or I've referred clients to this person. They're a competent attorney and they do a great job. Whatever the review is, it's the full disclosure of I'm another attorney. And so you're not trying, you don't want fake reviews on there, or at least I don't. But you want to be just kind of full disclosure, making sure that you say I'm a fellow attorney, or we went to law school together, high level competency, that sort of thing.
Thank you.
And I haven't had any issue with those actually coming up and being found.
So I have a quick question.
Yeah.
This isn't, obviously I'm not an attorney, but we are starting a blog recently through Houston area law librarians. And so we have the traditional way of doing things. Obviously, we have a whole bunch of members. You email all those people, they get to it. So kind of our goal at this point is how do we get other law librarians from around the country to get to our blog? So we do have like hashtags, tags and stuff like that. But what would be kind of your suggestion to get people that aren't in our normal circle, I guess you could say, to our blog or to our website? Maybe not necessarily Google, but something like that.
I mean, you could do a couple different things. Probably the easiest one I would suggest is like doing a Facebook ad geared to, like, you can put in those specific algorithms. And I mean, you can limit the jurisdiction. It can be the same city, it can be the same state, it can be United States, it can be however you kind of gear it up. That would probably be the easiest, but then also what I would do is the network that you've already established, I would like email them over the link. Again, don't reinvent the wheel. Be like, hey, this is what we're doing. We'd love for you to check it out. And maybe even find a give or take, like a guest blog spot. And then that way you are getting the promoting that for the Fort Bend Law Library, but then you give them some recognition too of you're not afraid to have other law librarians, put in their 2 cents.
Right. And then maybe, as well as, the people that we email, our members, have them share it with one person, and then that might be something good too.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Lauren, I'm on Google and I have Google reviews, but I've been actually a member, or I claimed my AVO rating way years ago when it first started. And so I feel like a perfect 10, and I've got more reviews on AVO than I do on Google. But I'm wondering whether AVO's presence means that much anymore, like it used to when there wasn't Google reviews, and whether I should still be trying to get people to do AVO reviews, or should I just really focus on Google at this point?
I mean, if you've got a solid AVO review, I would say start driving more people to Google. Both are good because I think in this industry, people are going to look at stuff like that, which is, made for lawyers. So I think the AVO has its place. I think it is important to have a good rating on there. But if that one's done, as done as any kind of review platform can be, I would start boosting the one that you are not, that you could really use more reviews, more traction.
The other thing I recommend for especially like for the new people is I didn't learn this early on, but I know it now, is respond to every single review, whether it's good or bad. So that way, when you do respond to the bad, people don't think you just have sour grapes because you've already responded to all the good reviews too.
Right.
So, on Google, I think I have, out of 30 reviews or something, I've got like two ones from disgruntled pro bono clients.
Mm-hmm.
But I made sure that I was, you can't respond to the substance so much because of attorney-client privilege.
Correct.
But I responded in a way so that the public would understand what the disagreement really was about. But it's not like I just have responses to my bad reviews. So they see that I'm actually responsive to all my reviews, so it doesn't look like sour grapes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's good. I think you have to tread lightly a little bit. We were actually talking about this earlier. A lot of people say bad publicity is good publicity. It depends. So I think if you're just, always taking into consideration that everything you write, everything that you record can be, taken a picture of, screenshot, and then shared with whomever. So I think as long as you keep it vague, thank you for your feedback. I apologize if, I don't even know how to, I apologize if the case may not have worked out the way we had hoped. Or, but I mean, with attorney-client privilege, you really have to tread lightly. I would probably keep it pretty vague, like, thank you for your response. We're constantly trying to improve our practice. Things like that. Because the last thing you want to do too is like incite another response and then start building traction on that negativity. So.
I think the most frustrating thing is I've had it one time, I've seen other attorneys, is that we get reviews from people who are not our clients.
Yeah.
Right? They're a lead, never got a call back, or opposing parties, and Google doesn't necessarily do a good job of saying, "Oh, we're going to take that down." So you somehow have building up positive reviews to overcome these random negative reviews that really have nothing to do with you.
Yeah. It's a balance for sure. And I hear that one a lot. Usually for those, I usually err on the side of don't draw any attention to it. I don't, and that way people, can kind of see the pattern of you responding to actual clients, and then the non-clients, you just passing right over.
That's all I had. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining in. Anybody else?
Okay. Well, if that's all, then thank you, Lauren, for joining us. It was quite informative and informational. And thank you, everybody, for coming. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Thank you.